Picture this. A man standing in the middle of an elegant restaurant, surrounded by his wife's entire family, watching as his mother-in-law reads his text messages out loud. Messages that were never meant for his wife. Messages that detailed exactly what he planned to do with another woman that very night. His face goes white. His hands start shaking. And in that moment, Michael Thompson realizes that the small mistake he made 60 seconds ago just destroyed everything he spent 6 months carefully hiding. This is a story of how one wrong text message unraveled a web of lies so intricate, so carefully constructed, that the man who built it truly believed he was untouchable. But before we get to that catastrophic night, you need to understand who Michael Thompson was, or at least who he thought he was. Michael Thompson was a master of compartmentalization. That's what he told himself every morning when he looked in the mirror while shaving. At 42 years old, he had perfected the art of living 2 completely separate lives, and he was damn proud of it. Monday through Friday, from 7 in the morning until 6 at night, Michael was a dedicated financial manager at a mid-sized investment firm in downtown Chicago. He wore expensive suits, drove a leased BMW, and had an office with a view that made clients feel like their money was in capable hands. He was good at his job. Not exceptional, but good enough. Good enough to maintain the lifestyle, good enough to avoid scrutiny, good enough to have an excuse for staying late. And staying late was essential to his system. Lauren Hayes sat 3 desks away from his office. 28 years old, ambitious, beautiful in that effortless way that made his 42-year-old heart race like he was in college again. She had joined the firm 6 months ago, and within 2 weeks, Michael had convinced himself that the attraction was mutual. Within a month, he had manufactured reasons to work late with her. Within 6 weeks, they had kissed in the parking garage after everyone else had gone home. Now, 6 months in, Michael had transformed their affair into a well-oiled machine of deception. He had purchased a second phone, a cheap Android that he kept in his gym bag. Sarah never questioned the gym bag. She encouraged his fitness routine. Actually, every Tuesday and Thursday evening, Michael would kiss his wife goodbye, promise to be back by 8 and head to the gym. Instead, he would drive 15 minutes in the opposite direction to Lauren's apartment, where he would spend 2 passionate hours before rushing home, showering quickly and slipping back into the role of devoted husband. The system had layers. Backup lies for every possible question. If Sarah ever checked his location, he had downloaded an app that could spoof GPS coordinates. He had a separate credit card, hidden statements, an email account Sarah didn't know existed. He had rehearsed explanations for every scenario. Late client meetings, market volatility, requiring overtime, team-building happy hours that his boss supposedly mandated. Michael genuinely believed he had thought of everything. On the home front, he played his role beautifully. Sarah Thompson, his wife of 16 years, seemed completely oblivious. She was 38. Still attractive in that comfortable, familiar way that made Michael feel guilty for about 30 seconds before rationalizing his affair. She spent her days managing their home, volunteering at their kids' school, and planning family events. She seemed content. Maybe too content. Maybe a little boring, if Michael was being honest with himself. They had 2 children, Emma, 15, and Jacob, 13. Good kids, honor roll students. Michael showed up to their games and recitals when it was convenient. He took family photos with genuine smiles. He played the part of the present father while mentally counting down the hours until his next escape. This particular morning, a Wednesday in late October, Michael sat at the breakfast table reading the newspaper while Sarah made pancakes. Emma scrolled through her phone, barely acknowledging anyone. Jacob argued about why he shouldn't have to do his homework before school. "Michael, don't forget about Saturday," Sarah said, her tone light but pointed. "My parents' anniversary dinner. 6 o'clock. The whole family will be there." Michael looked up from the sports section. "Of course. Wouldn't miss it." Sarah smiled, but something in her eyes made him uncomfortable for just a moment. A flicker of something he couldn't quite read. Then it was gone, and she was turning back to the stove, humming softly. What Michael didn't notice was that Sarah had been humming the same song for 3 weeks straight, a nervous habit she had developed while gathering evidence, while making phone calls to lawyers, while planning the most devastating confrontation of their marriage. But Michael noticed none of this. He kissed his wife on the cheek, ruffled Jacob's hair, and headed out the door, his mind already on Lauren and the text he would send her from the car. At the office, Michael moved through his day with the confidence of a man who believed he had mastered the game. He attended meetings, reviewed portfolios, and made small talk with colleagues who had no idea that their seemingly straight-laced co-worker was leading a double life. During lunch, he texted Lauren from his secret phone. "Tonight? Your place." Her response came immediately. "Can't. Yoga class with my sister." "Tomorrow?" Michael frowned. Lauren had been less available lately. It irritated him, though he would never admit that his irritation stemmed from insecurity. What if she was losing interest? What if she had met someone else? Someone single? Someone who could actually offer her a future instead of stolen hours in the dark? He pushed the thoughts away. He was in control. He had options. He could end this any time he wanted. "Tomorrow works," he typed back. "Miss you." 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. No response. Michael's jaw tightened. He switched to his regular phone and texted Sarah. "How's your day, honey?" Sarah responded within minutes. "Good. Finalizing details for Saturday. It's going to be special. Can't wait." The emoji she included, a heart, should have seemed normal, but something about it felt off to Michael. Too cheerful, too eager. He shook his head. He was being paranoid. Sarah suspected nothing. Sarah knew nothing. Sarah was incapable of the kind of strategic thinking that would be required to catch him. He had made sure that, by keeping her world small, domestic, manageable. What Michael didn't know was that Sarah had screenshots of every text he had ever sent Lauren. She had recordings of phone calls. She had hotel receipts, restaurant bills, and timestamps that created an irrefutable timeline of infidelity. She had hired one of the best private investigators in Chicago, a woman who specialized in documenting affairs for divorce proceedings. And Sarah had spent the last 3 weeks deciding exactly when and how to detonate this bomb. Michael's affair with Lauren hadn't started with grand passion or overwhelming desire. It had started with boredom and opportunity, the 2 most dangerous ingredients for a man who considered himself too smart to get caught. 6 months ago, Lauren had walked into the office on her first day, and Michael had noticed her immediately. Everyone had. She wore confidence like perfume, and in their industry, confidence was currency. She was assigned to the desk clustered near his office. And within days, Michael found reasons to strike up conversations. "How are you settling in? Need any help with the Harris account? A few of us are getting drinks after work. You should join." Lauren was friendly but professional. She laughed at his jokes but maintained boundaries. That only made her more appealing. Michael was used to getting what he wanted with minimal effort. A challenge excited him. The breakthrough came during a late evening in April. The firm was preparing for a major audit, and several team members were working overtime. By 8 o'clock, only Michael and Lauren remained in the office. He suggested they order dinner, his treat. She agreed. Over Chinese takeout in the conference room. They talked, really talked. Lauren mentioned her recent breakup, how she had moved to Chicago for a fresh start. Michael found himself exaggerating his own dissatisfaction with married life, painting Sarah as neglectful and unappreciative. He was testing the waters, gauging her response. Lauren listened, sympathy in her eyes. "That sounds lonely," she said softly. "It is," Michael replied, moving his chair slightly closer. "Sometimes I feel like I'm invisible in my own home." That night, nothing physical happened, but a door had opened. Over the next 2 weeks, the late-night work sessions became more frequent. The conversations grew more intimate. Michael began sharing details about his marriage that he had no business sharing, casting himself as the victim of a loveless relationship. Then came the night in the parking garage. It was raining. They had worked until 10. As they walked to their cars, Lauren slipped on the wet pavement. Michael caught her, his hands on her waist, her face suddenly inches from his. "Careful," he whispered. "Thank you," she breathed. They stood there for 5 seconds that felt like 5 hours. Then Michael kissed her, and she kissed him back. The affair began that night in earnest. At first, It was just kissing in his car or her apartment for an hour before he had to rush home. Then it became more. More time, more intimacy, more lives required to sustain it. Michael had crossed lines he never imagined crossing. He had looked his wife in the eye and lied about working late. He had missed his son's baseball game for a hotel rendezvous. He had used joint account money to buy Lauren expensive dinners and gifts, then deleted the notifications before Sarah could see them. And through it all, he felt invincible. He felt like the protagonist of his own thrilling movie, outsmarting everyone around him. The guilt, when it appeared, was easily dismissed. He deserved happiness. He deserved passion. He deserved more than what his boring life at home offered. What he didn't deserve, in his mind, was to get caught. But as Saturday approached, the night of Sarah's parents' 40th anniversary dinner, Michael had no idea that his carefully constructed world was about to collapse in the most public, humiliating way imaginable. And it would all start with one small mistake. One moment of carelessness. One text message sent to the wrong group. Saturday arrived with unseasonably warm October weather, the kind of Indian summer day that makes people feel optimistic. Michael Thompson felt anything but optimistic. He felt annoyed. Lauren had been texting him all morning on his secret phone, growing increasingly upset that he had to cancel their plans for the evening. They were supposed to go to a new restaurant in the West Loop, then back to her place. Instead, he was stuck attending his in-laws' anniversary party. This is ridiculous. Lauren had texted at 9 in the morning. You spend more time with your wife than with me. Michael had bristled at the word wife in all caps, as if Sarah was an opponent rather than the woman he had made vows to. But he couldn't respond honestly. That yes, sometimes playing happy family was tedious, but it was necessary for maintaining his comfortable life. Instead, he typed, I know, baby. Just one more family obligation, and then we'll have the whole next weekend. I promise. You always promise, came the reply, followed by an angry emoji. Michael sighed and put the phone in his gym bag, tucking it deep beneath his workout clothes. He showered, shaved carefully, and selected a navy suit that Sarah had bought him for his last birthday. When he emerged from the bathroom, Sarah was standing in their bedroom, holding a black dress against herself. Does this look okay? She asked. Her voice was neutral, but her eyes were searching his face for something. You look beautiful in everything, Michael said automatically, the kind of compliment that required no thought. Sarah's expression didn't change. She hung the dress back in the closet and pulled out a different one, deep green with a modest neckline. I think I'll wear this one instead. It was your mother's favorite when she saw it last month. The mention of his mother sent a small jolt of discomfort through Michael. His parents would be at the dinner too. Of course. They adored Sarah, treated her like the daughter they never had. If they knew what he was doing, but they wouldn't know. No one would know. That one's perfect, he said, kissing her forehead. What time do we need to leave? 5:30. The reservation is at 6, and I want to get there a few minutes early to make sure everything is set up properly. Michael glanced at his watch. It was only 2 in the afternoon. I'll be ready. Sarah nodded and left the room. As soon as she was gone, Michael retrieved his secret phone and texted Lauren. I'll make it up to you, I swear. This time, there was no immediate response. The silence felt ominous. Arrival at the venue. 15 to 1800 hours. The restaurant Sarah had chosen for her parents' anniversary was an upscale Italian place called Marcello's, located in a renovated building in Lincoln Park. It had exposed brick walls, warm lighting from Edison bulbs, and a private dining room in the back that could accommodate 30 people comfortably. When Michael, Sarah, and their 2 children arrived at 5:45, several family members were already there. Sarah's mother, Patricia, rushed over immediately, embracing her daughter with tears in her eyes. 40 years, Patricia said, her voice thick with emotion. Can you believe it? 40 years with that man. She gestured toward her husband, Robert, who stood by the bar talking to Sarah's brother, David. You've been blessed, Mom, Sarah said, and there was something in her tone, something sharp beneath the sweetness, that made Michael glance at her. But she was already moving away, greeting her sister, coordinating with the restaurant staff about the seating arrangements. Michael played his role perfectly. He shook hands with Robert, complimented Patricia's dress, made small talk with David about the Bears' disappointing season. He smiled for photos, his arm around Sarah's waist, the picture of a devoted husband. Emma and Jacob disappeared to a corner with their cousins, absorbed in their phones. Michael wished he could do the same, wished he could check on Lauren, make sure she wasn't too angry. The secret phone felt like it was burning a hole in his jacket pocket. As more family members arrived, aunts, uncles, cousins, close family friends, the private dining room filled with laughter and conversation. Sarah moved through the crowd gracefully, the perfect hostess, making sure everyone had drinks, introducing people who hadn't met before. Michael accepted a scotch from the bartender and positioned himself near the window, observing. His own parents arrived at 6:15, and his mother immediately sought out Sarah, the two women embracing warmly. "She's such a treasure," his mother said to him afterward, her hand on his arm. "You're a lucky man, Michael." "I know, Mom," he replied, taking a long sip of his drink. What he didn't notice was that Sarah's sister, Jennifer, was watching him from across the room. Jennifer had always been protective of Sarah, and for the past 3 weeks, she had known exactly what Michael was doing. Sarah had told her everything. Jennifer's fingers tightened around her wine glass as she watched Michael laugh at something David said, as if he didn't have a care in the world. "Just wait," Jennifer thought. "Just wait until you see what's coming." At 6:30, the family was called to take their seats at a long rectangular table that ran the length of the private dining room. Robert and Patricia sat at the head of the table, with Sarah and Michael positioned nearby. Place cards indicated where everyone should sit, and Michael noticed that Sarah had placed it between herself and his own father, a strategic position that made it difficult to check his phone without being obvious. The waitstaff began serving appetizers, bruschetta, calamari, a selection of cured meats and cheeses. Wine flowed freely. The atmosphere was warm, celebratory. Robert stood to give a short speech about 40 years of marriage, what it took to make a partnership last through raising children, financial struggles, health scares, and everything in between. "The secret," Robert said, his hand finding Patricia's, "is simple. Honesty, trust, and never, ever taking each other for granted." Everyone applauded. Michael clapped along, but the words settled uncomfortably in his chest. He reached for his wine glass and drained it, immediately signaling for a refill. Sarah, sitting beside him, leaned over and whispered, "Are you okay? You seem tense." "I'm fine," he said curtly. "Just a long week." She nodded, but her hand found his under the table and squeezed it. The gesture should have been comforting. Instead, it felt like a trap closing around him. The secret phone in his jacket pocket vibrated. Once, twice, 3 times in rapid succession. Lauren was texting him, and from the frequency, she was not happy. Michael excused himself, standing abruptly. "Bathroom," he muttered. Sarah's eyes followed him as he left the room. The restaurant's bathroom was down a narrow hallway, blessedly empty when Michael entered. He locked himself in a stall and pulled out the secret phone with hands that were starting to sweat. Lauren had sent 5 messages. "I can't do this anymore. You're never going to leave her, are you? I feel like such an idiot. Don't bother responding. I know where I stand. Actually, you know what? I'm done. Done." Panic flared in Michael's chest. He couldn't lose Lauren. She was his escape, his validation that he was still desirable, still exciting. He typed quickly, "Baby, please. Don't say that. You mean everything to me. This dinner is torture. I'm sitting here watching my in-laws celebrate 40 years of marriage, and all I can think about is you, about your body, about getting out of here and coming straight to your place. Please don't give up on us. I need you." He hit send, closed his eyes, and took a deep breath. Then his regular phone buzzed, the one in his other pocket, his work and family phone. Confused, Michael pulled out and opened his messages. What he saw made his blood turn to ice. The message he had just typed, the message meant for Lauren, sent from a secret phone, was sitting in the family group chat. The one called Thompson Family, that included Sarah, both kids, his parents, Sarah's parents, her siblings, and several extended family members. 32 people had just received the message. "Baby, please." "Don't say that. You mean everything to me. This dinner is torture. I'm sitting here watching my in-laws celebrate 40 years of marriage, and all I can think about is you, about your body, about getting out of here and coming straight to your place. Please don't give up on us. I need you. For 5 full seconds, Michael couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't process what had just happened. Then came the tsunami of notifications. People were reading it. People were responding. What the hell? From David. Michael? From his own mother. Sarah, are you seeing this? From Jennifer. Michael's hand started shaking so badly he almost dropped the phone. How? How had this happened? He looked at his secret phone, still clutched in his left hand, and realized with dawning horror what had occurred. He had recently gotten a new regular phone. When setting it up, he must have accidentally synced both phones to the same iCloud account. The message, sent from one device, had somehow duplicated to the other and sent through the wrong messaging app to the wrong contact group. One mistake, one tiny technical error, and his entire world was ending. Michael burst out of the bathroom and ran back toward the private dining room. He had to fix this. He had to explain. He had to. He stopped in the doorway. Everyone was staring at their phones. Then, slowly, they all looked up at him. The room had gone completely silent. Sarah sat in her chair, her phone in her hand, her face utterly calm. Too calm. She lifted her eyes to meet his, and in that moment, Michael knew. She had been waiting for this. The silence in the private dining room was suffocating. 32 people, frozen in their seats, staring at Michael Thompson as if he were a stranger who had wandered into a private gathering. The warm lighting that had seemed so inviting 20 minutes ago now felt harsh, exposing. Michael's mouth opened, closed, opened again. That's not, someone hacked my... Don't. Sarah's voice cut through his stammering like a knife. She stood slowly, her green dress catching the light, her phone still in her hand. Don't insult everyone in this room by lying. Not now. Robert, Sarah's father, pushed back on the table, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. His face had gone red, veins visible at his temples. You have 10 seconds to explain what the hell we just read before I throw you out of here myself. Dad, wait. Michael took a step forward, hands raised. It's a misunderstanding. It's a misunderstanding? Jennifer, Sarah's sister, was on her feet now, too, her voice shaking with fury. You accidentally texted the entire family about wanting to see some woman's body? About this dinner being torture? That kind of misunderstanding. Emma, Michael's 15-year-old daughter, had tears streaming down her face. Jacob, 13, looked pale and confused, his eyes darting between his parents. Dad, he said quietly. What's going on? That broke something in Michael. The sight of his son's face, the innocence bleeding away in real time, replaced by dawning realization. Jacob, buddy, it's complicated. Adults sometimes. Get out. Patricia, Sarah's mother, spoke for the first time. She had been crying silently, her carefully applied makeup now streaked. Get away from my family. Mrs. Patterson, please, if I could just... You heard her. David, Sarah's brother, was moving around the table now, his body language aggressive. Get the hell out. Michael's own mother made a sound somewhere between a sob and a gasp. Michael, how could you? Sarah she's... She couldn't finish the sentence, covering her mouth with her hand. The walls felt like they were closing in. Michael's throat constricted. Sweat beaded on his forehead despite the air conditioning. He looked desperately at Sarah, the only person who hadn't moved, who stood perfectly still beside the table, watching him disintegrate. Sarah, he said, his voice cracking. Please, can we talk about this privately? Her expression didn't change. No. Sarah, please, I can explain. No, she repeated, her voice steady. You've been explaining things to me for 6 months, Michael. Every late night at work. Every canceled family plan. Every time you came home smelling like someone else's perfume. You've been explaining, and I've been listening. But now... She glanced around the room at the shocked faces of their family. Now everyone else gets to hear the truth. Michael felt his legs go weak. What are you talking about? You didn't know. You couldn't have. Sarah's laugh was cold, foreign. You actually believe that? You thought I was stupid enough not to notice? The second phone you hide in your gym bag? The app on your regular phone that fakes your location? The credit card statements that come to a P.O. box you thought I didn't know about? The room seemed to tilt. How long have you? 3 months, Sarah said calmly. I've known for 3 months. 3 months. The words echoed in Michael's head like a death sentence. She had known for 3 months and said nothing, continued making his meals, sleeping in the same bed, planning this very dinner party. I don't believe you, Michael said, but his voice lacked conviction. Sarah reached into her purse and pulled out a tablet. She tapped the screen a few times, then handed it to her father. Dad, would you mind passing that around? I think everyone should see what Michael's been up to. Robert took the tablet with shaking hands. His eyes scanned whatever was on the screen, and his expression shifted from anger to disgust. He passed it to Patricia, who gasped and looked away before passing it to the next person. Michael watched in horror as the tablet made its way around the table. Each person who looked at it had the same reaction. Shock, followed by revulsion, followed by a hardening of their expression as they looked at him. When it reached his own mother, she stared at the screen for a long moment before setting it down and standing. We're leaving, she said to Michael's father. I won't sit here and watch this. Mom, please. Michael started, but she held up a hand. You're not my son right now. The man who raised you, who taught you about integrity and respect, would be ashamed. She gathered her purse, and Michael's father followed her out without a word, without even looking at his son. What did you show them? Michael demanded, his voice rising. What's on that tablet? Jennifer picked up the device and held it facing him. Shall I read it out loud? Or would you prefer to explain why there are photos of you and a blonde woman kissing in a car? In a hotel lobby? In what looks like a lingerie store? Michael's heart stopped. Where did you get those? A private investigator, Sarah said matter-of-factly. I hired her 11 weeks ago. Her name is Catherine Morris, and she's very good at her job. She followed you to Lauren Hayes' apartment 7 times. She documented 3 hotel visits. She recovered deleted messages from your secret phone after you left in your gym bag one night, and I borrowed it while you were in the shower. The room spun. Michael gripped the back of a chair for support. That's illegal. That's invasion of privacy. Actually, Sarah interrupted, Illinois is a one-party consent state for recording conversations. And community property means I had every legal right to examine our joint accounts and your location. My lawyer made sure I did everything by the book. She smiled, but it was the smile of a predator. You're not the only one who can plan ahead, Michael. David had the tablet now, scrolling through whatever evidence Sarah had compiled. Jesus Christ, he muttered. There's texts here about using your kid's college fund for a weekend getaway. What kind of man? I never touched a college fund. Michael shouted. That's a lie. Sarah pulled out her phone and read from the screen. Message from Michael to Lauren, September 14th at 11:47 p.m. I'll figure out the money for the Miami trip. There's an account Sarah doesn't check regularly. She'll never miss $2,000. That account, Michael, was Emma's college savings. You withdrew $2,000 on September 16th. Would you like me to show everyone the bank records? Emma made a choking sound and ran from the room, her cousin following after her. Jacob sat frozen, staring at his father like he was looking at a monster. Son, Michael said, moving toward Jacob, but David blocked his path. Stay away from him. David growled. He's my son. And you just stole from his sister's future to spend a weekend with your mistress. David shot back. I don't think you get to claim the father car right now. Michael felt like he was drowning, gasping for air that wouldn't come. This couldn't be happening. This was supposed to be a simple family dinner. He was supposed to smile for a few hours, go home, and text Lauren that he'd see her tomorrow. Instead, his entire life was imploding in front of 3 dozen witnesses. Sarah, he tried again, his voice breaking. I know I messed up. I know I did. But we can work through this. We can go to counseling. We can work through it. Sarah's voice rose for the first time, genuine emotion cracking through her calm facade. You want to work through 6 months of lying? 6 months of putting your hands on another woman while you came home and kissed me goodnight? 6 months of stealing from our children, manipulating me, making me feel crazy when I questioned you. I never made you feel crazy. Yes, you did. Sarah's shout silenced the room. Every time I asked about working late, you made me feel guilty for not supporting your career. Every time I mentioned smelling perfume, you told me I was imagining things, that I was being paranoid. You gaslit me for months while I cried myself to sleep, wondering what was wrong with me, why I wasn't enough. Tears were streaming down her face now, and seeing them, Michael felt a rush of something, guilt, panic, the realization that his actions had consequences he never fully considered. I'm sorry, he whispered. Sarah, I'm so sorry. You're not sorry you did it, she said, wiping her eyes. You're sorry you got caught. There's a difference. Jennifer had moved to stand beside her sister, one arm around Sarah's shoulders. He's not worth your tears, Sarah. He never was. That's not true, Michael protested. We've built a life together. 16 years of marriage. 2 children. A home. You can't just throw that away because I made a mistake. A mistake? Robert, who had been silent while trying to comfort his sobbing wife, finally spoke again. A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. A mistake is saying the wrong thing in an argument. What you did was a systematic betrayal. You planned it. You budgeted for it. You lied every single day for 6 months. It's not like Sarah's perfect. Michael shouted, his desperation turning to anger. She's boring. She stopped caring about her appearance. All she does is focus on the kids and her volunteer work. I felt invisible in my own home. The words hung in the air, ugly and raw. Sarah stared at him for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was quiet but deadly. I stopped wearing makeup every day because Emma started developing an eating disorder, and I wanted her to see that natural beauty is okay. I focused on volunteer work because our son was being bullied, and I became active in school to make sure he felt supported. I prioritize our children because that's what parents do. But you're right. I stopped prioritizing you. I stopped making you the center of my universe. And apparently, that gave you permission to cheat. Every word was a knife. Michael had no response. Sarah reached into her purse again and pulled out a manila envelope. She opened it and withdrew a stack of papers, setting them on the table. These are divorce papers. They've been prepared for 2 weeks, just waiting for the right moment to serve them. I was originally going to wait until Monday and have them delivered to your office. But since you've saved me the trouble of explaining to everyone why we're divorcing, I figure we can do this now. She slid the papers across the table toward him. Michael stared at them like they were a snake about to strike. You can't be serious. I've never been more serious about anything in my life. Sign them. Here? Now. In front of everyone. Why not? Sarah's smile was bitter. You ended our marriage in front of everyone. Seems only fair to make it official with an audience. Robert cleared his throat. Michael, there's something else you should know. He exchanged a glance with Patricia, who nodded through her tears. We had our will updated 3 weeks ago. You are no longer a beneficiary. Whatever we leave to Sarah and the children is held in a trust that specifically excludes you. The hits kept coming. Michael looked around the room at the faces staring back at him. Anger, disappointment, disgust, but no sympathy. No one was defending him. No one was suggesting Sarah was overreacting. His phone buzzed. He pulled it out reflexively and saw a text from Lauren. Did you seriously just send me a message meant for your wife? We're done. Lose my number. Even his mistress was abandoning him. Michael, Sarah's voice pulled his attention back to her. Sign the papers. Take what little dignity you have left and leave, or I'll have security escort you out. He looked at the divorce papers, at the pen she had placed beside them. His hands trembled as he picked it up. You will regret this, he said weakly. When you're alone, when you realize what you gave up. I'll be relieved, Sarah interrupted. Every morning I'll wake up and feel relieved that I don't have to wonder where you really are, that I don't have to pretend not to notice the smell of someone else's perfume, that I don't have to keep making excuses for why my husband values everyone else more than his own family. Michael looked at his daughter Emma, who had returned to the room and stood in the doorway with red, swollen eyes. He looked at Jacob, who wouldn't meet his gaze. He looked at the family members who had celebrated with him at holidays, who had been a support system for 16 years. They were all strangers now. With a hand that wouldn't stop shaking, Michael signed the papers. Michael set down the pen, and Sarah immediately collected the signed divorce papers, placing them carefully back into the manila envelope. The finality of the gesture, the efficiency with which she moved, told Michael that this moment had been choreographed long before tonight. "There's more you need to hear," Sarah said, addressing the room rather than Michael, "because signing papers is just the beginning of understanding what he's done." "Sarah, please," Michael started, but she held up a hand. "You've talked enough. For 6 months, you've been talking, lying, manipulating. Now it's my turn." She looked around at the family members still seated at the table, some of them clutching their wine glasses like lifelines. "I want you all to know that I didn't plan to do this tonight. I was going to handle this privately, spare everyone the drama. But when that text came through..." She gestured to the phone scattered across the table. "When he literally gave me the perfect opening by humiliating himself in front of all of you, I realized something. Secrets have power only in darkness. It's time to bring everything into the light." Jennifer handed Sarah the tablet again. Sarah tapped through several screens before holding it up so the room could see. Lauren Hayes is 28 years old. She works at Michael's firm. They've been sleeping together for 6 months. Sarah's voice was clinical now, like she was presenting a business proposal. "But what Michael doesn't know, what I found out 2 weeks ago, is that Lauren is actually the third affair he's had in our marriage." The words hit like a physical blow. Michael's vision actually blurred for a moment. "What? No, that's not." "Summer of 2019, Sarah continued, ignoring him. "A woman named Melissa Chun. She was a client of the firm. You met her at a conference in Las Vegas. The affair lasted 3 months before she moved to Seattle." Michael's mouth went dry. He had completely forgotten about Melissa. It had been such a brief thing, hardly worth remembering. How could Sarah possibly know? "And before that," Sarah said, "fall of 2017, Rebecca Morrison. She was Emma's piano teacher. You used to stay for the lessons, remember? Said you wanted to be involved in Emma's education. Turns out you were very involved with her teacher. That one lasted 4 months before she quit suddenly and moved back to Wisconsin." The room erupted in gasps and murmurs. Michael felt his knees buckle, and he had to grab onto the back of a chair again to stay upright. "How?" he managed to ask. "Catherine, my investigator, is thorough," Sarah said. "When she started looking into your current affair, she found patterns, unexplained absences, credit card charges. Once she knew what to look for, the history became clear. She tracked down Melissa through LinkedIn. They had quite a nice phone conversation, actually. Melissa was very apologetic. She didn't know you were married. You told her you were divorced." Sarah's laugh was hollow. "Rebecca, on the other hand, knew you were married. She felt terrible about it afterward, which is why she left so abruptly. She was actually relieved when Catherine reached out, said she'd been carrying the guilt for years." Michael's mother had left the room, but his father had returned and stood in the doorway, listening. The look on his face, disappointment so profound it seemed to age him 10 years, was more than Michael could bear. "3 affairs, David said, shaking his head. "Jesus, Michael. 3 that she knows about. How many others?" "There weren't others," Michael said quickly. Too quickly. Sarah tilted her head. Maybe not. Does it matter? 3 is enough to establish a pattern. 3 is enough to prove that our marriage was a lie for years, not months." Patricia had stopped crying, and now looked at Sarah with something like awe. "Honey, how did you manage to find all this out? How did you hold yourself together?" "I had to," Sarah said simply, "because once I started looking, I found more than just affairs. I found financial infidelity, too." She pulled out her phone, and began reading from notes she'd prepared. Over the past 6 months alone, Michael has spent approximately $18,000 on his affair with Lauren. Dinners, hotels, gifts, trips. All of it came from our joint accounts, our savings, our children's futures. That's not possible, Michael protested. I would never spend that much. Bella Luna Restaurant on August 12th, $247. The Peninsula Hotel on September 3rd, $612. Tiffany and Company on September 20th, $3,400. A bracelet that Lauren wore in the photos Catherine took. Sarah looked up from her phone. Should I continue? I have spreadsheets. I have receipts. I have 6 months of documentation showing exactly where every dollar went. Jennifer whistled low. $18,000 on one affair, and the other two, I haven't calculated those yet. But given the timeline and patterns, I estimate another $10,000 to $15,000 combined. Sarah's eyes were hard as she looked at Michael. That's $30,000 minimum, stolen from our marriage, from our children's education, from our retirement. All so you could feel like a big man impressing women half your age. They weren't half my age. Does that really matter right now? David interrupted. The amount matters. The betrayal matters. Not the age gap semantics. Robert had gone very quiet, staring at Michael with an expression that was worse than anger. It was disgust. Michael, when you and Sarah got married, I helped you with the down payment on your house. Do you remember? $20,000 from our savings because you too were starting out and needed help. Michael nodded mutely, not sure where this was going. I did that because I trusted you, because I believed you would take care of my daughter. Build a life together. Be partners. Robert's voice cracked. And you took that trust, that money, everything we invested in you and your family, and you pissed it away on affairs. You didn't just betray Sarah. You betrayed all of us. Patricia touched her husband's arm, but she was looking at Michael too. When Sarah called me 3 weeks ago and told me what she discovered, I didn't want to believe it. I kept thinking there had to be a mistake, that our Michael, the man who held our daughter's hand at the altar, who gave us grandchildren, who came to Sunday dinners and fixed our computer and seemed like such a good man, I thought there was no way. But then she showed me the evidence, and I had to accept the truth. You're not a good man. You're a coward who took advantage of my daughter's love and trust. The words hit harder than any physical blow could have. Michael had always prided himself on his relationship with Sarah's parents. They had accepted him as their own, included him in family traditions, treated him with respect and affection. Losing that felt like losing a limb. I can pay it back, Michael said desperately. The money, I'll pay it all back. I'll work extra hours, take on more clients. With what job? Sarah asked quietly. Michael froze. What? With what job are you going to pay back $30,000? Sarah's expression was almost pitying now. Michael, I contacted HR at your firm 4 days ago. I provided them with documentation that you've been having an inappropriate relationship with a subordinate employee. Lauren technically reports to you to the chain of command, which makes it a violation of company policy. They launched an investigation. The room started spinning again. You got me fired? I didn't get you fired. Your actions got you fired. I just made sure the right people knew about those actions. Sarah paused. Although technically you haven't been fired yet. You're on administrative leave pending the investigation. But Catherine documented multiple instances of you and Lauren engaging in personal activities during work hours, including a 2-hour lunch at a hotel. The company takes that seriously. Michael couldn't breathe. The walls were closing in. His marriage was over. His family hated him. His job was gone. Everything he had built, everything he had taken for granted, was disintegrating in real time. You planned this, he said, his voice barely a whisper. You planned all of this. The dinner, the timing, getting me fired. I protected myself and my children, Sarah corrected. You made the choices. You had the affairs. You spent the money. You violated company policy. I just made sure there were consequences. Jacob, who had been silent through most of the confrontation, finally spoke. His voice was small, younger than his 13 years. "Mom, do we have to see him? After the divorce?" The question hung in the air like smoke. Sarah knelt down beside her son's chair, her hand on his shoulder. "That's something we'll figure out together. Honey, you and Emma will have a say in what happens." "No," Michael said sharply. "Absolutely not. They're my children. I have rights." "You have some rights," Sarah interrupted, standing back up. "But Illinois family law is very clear about how custody decisions are made. The court considers the best interests of the children. And given what you've done, the lying, the stealing from their college funds, the way you prioritize your affairs over their needs, I don't think any judge is going to grant you primary custody." Jennifer added, "Not to mention that Emma is 15. In Illinois, judges give significant weight to the preferences of children over 14. If Emma tells the court she doesn't want to live with you," Emma, still standing in the doorway with tears streaming down her face, spoke for the first time since returning to the room. I don't want to see him. I don't want him in our house. I don't want him at my games or my graduation or anything." Her voice broke. "He ruined everything. He ruined our family." "Baby, please." Michael moved toward her, but Emma stepped back, shaking her head. "Don't call me that. Don't call me baby or honey or sweetheart. You don't get to use those words anymore." She wiped at her tears furiously. "Do you know how many times I'd offended you? When Mom would seem sad, I'd tell her that you were just working hard for us. When you missed my volleyball games, I'd tell myself you were building our future. I believed in you. I believed you were a good dad. I am a good dad. You stole from my college fund." Emma's screams silenced the room. "You took money that Grandma and Grandpa and Mom had saved for me, money for my future, and you spent it on some woman. What kind of dad does that? What kind of person does that?" Michael had no answer. What could he possibly say? Jacob was crying now, too, quiet tears that he tried to hide by looking down at the table. David moved to stand behind the boy, one hand on his shoulder in silent support. "The custody arrangement I'm proposing is supervised visitation," Sarah said, her voice steady despite the emotion crackling through the room. "1 day a week in a public place with a third party present that protects the children while allowing you to maintain some relationship with them." "Supervised visitation? Like I'm some kind of criminal?" Michael's voice rose. "I never hurt them. I never." "You taught your son that it's okay to lie to people who love you," Robert said quietly. "You taught your daughter that her father's desires are more important than her future. You hurt them more profoundly than any physical wound could, and you don't even see it." Michael looked around the room one more time. Every face showed the same thing. They were done with him. There would be no second chances, no redemption arc, no forgiveness waiting after a cooling-off period. Sarah pulled another document from her seemingly bottomless purse. "This is a restraining order. It's temporary, just until the divorce is finalized and custody is officially established. You're not to come within 500 feet of our house, the children's schools, or my parents' home. Any contact with me needs to go through my attorney." "A restraining order? Sarah, that's insane. You've demonstrated impulsive behavior and poor judgment. The text you sent tonight proves you're not thinking clearly. This is for everyone's protection, including yours." She handed him the document. "You'll be officially served on Monday, but I wanted you to be aware now." Michael stared at the paper in his hands. A restraining order against him from his own wife and children. "Where am I supposed to go?" he asked, and he hated how pathetic his voice sounded. "That's not my problem," Sarah said, not unkindly. "Just factually, you're an adult. Figure it out. Your clothes and essential items will be packed and left in the garage. You can pick them up tomorrow afternoon when we're not home. Everything else will sort through lawyers." "This is really it?" Michael asked, looking at her one last time. "You're really ending 16 years of marriage?" "You ended it," Sarah said. 6 months ago. 3 years ago. 5 years ago. Every time you chose someone else over me, over us. I'm just making it official." She turned to the rest of the family. "I'm sorry your anniversary dinner was ruined," she said to her parents. "This wasn't how I wanted tonight to go." Patricia stood, and embraced her daughter. Don't apologize. You have nothing to be sorry for. You're incredibly strong, sweetheart. Stronger than I could have been. We're proud of you, Robert added, joining the embrace. Whatever you need, we're here. One by one, the family members stood and moved towards Sarah, Emma, and Jacob. They formed a protective circle around them, physically pushing Michael out, making clear where their loyalties lay. Michael stood alone near the door, holding divorce papers and a restraining order, watching his family, his former family, come together without him. And he finally understood that this wasn't just the end of a marriage. It was the end of everything he had ever taken for granted. Michael left Marcelo's restaurant at 7:43 p.m. He walked his car in a daze, the manila envelope of the divorce papers and restraining order clutched in one hand, his phone buzzing constantly with messages from family members who had heard what happened and had opinions to share. He sat in the driver's seat for 10 full minutes, unable to turn the key, unable to process what had just occurred. Less than 2 hours ago, he had walked into that restaurant as a married man with a job, a home, a family. Now, he was none of those things. His regular phone showed 37 unread messages. His secret phone, the one that caused all of this, had one final message from Lauren. I spoke with HR today. If you try to contact me again, I'm filing for a restraining order too. You ruined my career and my reputation. Stay away from me. Even his escape route had slammed shut. Michael eventually started the car and drove, not sure where he was going. He couldn't go home. The restraining order made that clear. He passed a motel off the highway and pulled in, paying cash for a room with cigarette-burned carpet and a bathroom that smelled like mildew. He sat on the edge of the bed and tried calling his mother. The call went straight to voicemail. He tried his father. Same result. He scrolled through his contacts, looking for someone, anyone who might answer. Every call went to voicemail. Every text went unread. By 10 p.m., Michael understood a fundamental truth. He was alone. The following Monday, Michael learned that Sarah hadn't been exaggerating about the investigation at his firm. He received an email at 6 a.m. requesting his presence at an emergency meeting with HR and upper management. By noon, he was officially terminated. The HR director had been kind but firm. Multiple policy violations related to inappropriate conduct with subordinate employee. We take workplace harassment very seriously. It wasn't harassment. Michael had protested. It was consensual. She says otherwise. The HR director replied. She claims you leveraged your position to initiate the relationship, that you made her feel like refusing your advances would impact her career. That's a lie. She wanted it as much as... Mr. Thompson, whether that's true or not, you were in a position of authority. You should have known better. This conversation is over. Michael cleaned out his desk while former colleagues watched from their cubicles, their expressions a mix of curiosity and judgment. No one said goodbye. Lauren wasn't at her desk. He later learned she had transferred to a different branch, claiming hostile work environment. The firm had accommodated her request immediately. Michael spent that afternoon at a lawyer's office, a man who specialized in divorce cases. The lawyer reviewed Sarah's filing and winced. This is comprehensive, he said carefully. She has documentation of multiple affairs, financial impropriety, and what could be argued as abandonment of parental duties. Her attorney is Diane Foster, one of the best in the state. Can I fight this? Michael asked. You can try. But honestly, you'd spend tens of thousands on legal fees and probably still end up with a worse outcome than what she's offering. What is she offering? The lawyer read from the papers. She keeps the house, which makes sense since it was primarily purchased with family money. You split the retirement accounts, but she gets to keep anything she can prove was in the accounts before your affairs depleted them. Child support based on your future income, which will be difficult given your employment situation. Supervised visitation until the children are 18 and can decide for themselves. That's it? I lose everything. You lost everything when you had the affairs, Mr. Thompson. This paperwork just makes it official. For weeks after the anniversary dinner, Michael was living in a one-bedroom apartment in a neighborhood he had once considered beneath him. He'd found work as a financial consultant for a small startup, a significant step down from his previous position. with a salary to match. His days followed a bleak routine: work, microwave dinners, staring at the TV without really watching it. His supervised visits with Emma and Jacob happened every Sunday at a park pavilion, with Sarah's sister Jennifer present as the monitor. The first visit had been brutal. Emma had refused to speak to him beyond one-word answers. Jacob had cried and asked why Daddy had lied. By the third visit, Emma stopped coming altogether. By the fourth, Jacob was clearly uncomfortable and spent most of the time playing on his phone. "This isn't working," Jennifer told him after the sixth visit. "You're traumatizing them by forcing this." "They're my children," Michael said. "I have a right." "You gave up your rights when you chose your affairs over their well-being." "Jacob has started seeing a therapist because of anxiety you caused." Emma's grades dropped an entire letter. "You want to know what's best for your kids? Give them space." Michael didn't attend the seventh visit, or the eighth. Eventually, he stopped requesting them altogether. His parents sent a brief email in week 5. "We need time. Don't contact us." His mother included a PS. "We're having lunch with Sarah and the kids every Sunday. They need family right now." Even his own parents had chosen Sarah over him. Michael thought about trying to date, to find someone who didn't know about his past. But Chicago was smaller than he'd realized. His name had gotten around. The twice he tried using dating apps, women had Googled him and immediately unmatched when they found references to divorce, pieced together his story. He was radioactive, untouchable in the worst way. 3 months after that catastrophic Saturday night, Michael sat alone in his apartment on Thanksgiving, eating Chinese takeout and reflecting on a question his therapist had asked. What would you have done differently if you could go back? At first, he'd said he would have been more careful, not synced his phones, been smarter about covering his tracks. "That's not what I asked," the therapist said gently. "I asked what you would have done differently, not how you would have hidden it better." And that question haunted Michael, because even now, even after losing everything, he wasn't sure he could honestly say he regretted the affairs themselves. He regretted getting caught. He regretted the consequences. But the thrill, the validation, the excitement, part of him missed it. That realization was more damning than anything Sarah had said that night at the restaurant. Meanwhile, Sarah had filed for a legal name change back to her maiden name, Patterson. She'd enrolled in real estate classes and was building a new career. Emma had joined a support group for teens dealing with family trauma and was slowly healing. Jacob had started playing soccer again, something he'd quit when the family stress became too much. They were moving forward. Without Michael, on social media, platforms where Sarah hadn't blocked him, Michael could see glimpses of their new life. Photos from Emma's volleyball tournament, Jacob's birthday party, a Christmas card showing the three of them with Sarah's parents, everyone smiling. The empty space where Michael should have been was barely noticeable. He thought about the anniversary dinner constantly, replayed it in his mind, looking for the moment he could have salvaged things. But there was no such moment. Sarah had been planning his downfall for months. Even if he hadn't sent that text, she would have found another way to expose him. The text message hadn't ruined his marriage. It had just accelerated the inevitable. Experts say that affairs rarely happen in strong marriages. They thrive in environments of neglect, poor communication, and selfishness. Michael had provided all three. He had taken Sarah for granted, assumed her love was unconditional, believed he could have his cake and eat it too. He'd been wrong. The hardest part wasn't the loss of his marriage or his job or his reputation. It was looking in the mirror every morning and recognizing that he had done this to himself. No one had forced him to cheat. No one had made him steal from his children's education fund. No one had compelled him to send that catastrophic text. He had made every choice that led to that moment in the restaurant, and he would live with those choices for the rest of his life. As Michael finished his Chinese takeout alone on Thanksgiving, his phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. He almost didn't open it, assuming it was spam, but curiosity won. The message contained a single photo: Sarah, Emma, and Jacob at Thanksgiving dinner, surrounded by family, everyone laughing at some joke Michael would never hear. The text below read, "From Catherine Morris, P.I. My final report. Your family is happy without you. thought you should know. Michael stared at the photo for a long time. He could have been angry, could have felt betrayed that even the investigator Sarah hired was rubbing his face in it. Instead, he felt something unexpected. Relief. Not for himself. He would carry this pain for years, maybe forever, but relief that Sarah had escaped, that his children had a chance to see what a healthy relationship could look like through their mother's future partnerships, that they would grow up knowing that betrayal didn't have to be tolerated, that self-respect mattered more than keeping up appearances. Michael Thompson had thought his affair was perfectly hidden. He had believed himself smarter than everyone around him, more deserving of happiness, entitled to have everything without sacrifice. One small mistake, one text sent to the wrong group, had exposed his betrayal and shattered his marriage. But the truth was, the marriage had shattered long before that. Michael just hadn't been paying attention. And by the time he finally noticed, everyone he loved had already turned against him in a single night. Because that's what happens when you build your life on lies. Eventually, the truth comes out. And when it does, it brings everything down with it.